So I know that I need a Sabbath every week, that day is the Lord's, and that means stop doing any productive work. Just let it be a day of receiving, connecting with my husband, going for walks. Maybe we play golf, we go do a lunch date. We really guard against talking about anything work related or parenting related. I believe that in the scriptures, Sabbath was never casual to God. If you go through the Old Testament, it was like, don't murder, don't steal, and observe the Sabbath. He brought up the Sabbath constantly because what he wants us to know is that rest reminds us that we're not God. And if God is the one who created the heavens and earth and he rested and we think we're above that, then we have some hubris attached to our worth. So it was a discipline because I am a type A firstborn control freak by nature and nurture. And yet the Lord stripped that away by going like, you're going to do far more if you stop the work and let me accelerate some things that you have nothing to do with.
This is StRest. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. Rebekah Lyons and I first met when we were both speakers at the Greater Philadelphia Women's Conference a couple of years ago. But I've always been drawn to her and her books and the fact that she's an adoptive mama just like me. She is a national speaker, a best-selling author, and the co-host of Rhythms for Life, the podcast, which you should totally listen to. She shares openly about her journey through panic disorder and anxiety and depression and how God has really brought renewal and hope through faith and intentional rhythms of life, which we're going to talk about in this episode. She's the best-selling author of Building a Resilient Life and Rhythms of Renewal and so much more. She's a mom of 4. She's Cade, Pierce, Kennedy, and Joy. Her story is marked by deep faith and unexpected grace. It has not been an easy life, and I encourage you to go back and read her books and listen to her story. Her eldest son, Cade, was diagnosed with Down syndrome just hours after birth. And 17 years later, God led their family to adopt Joy from China, and Joy also has Down syndrome. Through these experiences and her own healing journey, Rebekah has become a passionate voice for mental health, for resilience, and rest in a culture that often glorifies hustle and burnout. Her work is everywhere. It's on The Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, Fox, Huffington Post, Hallmark, Home and Family, and so much more. In this episode of StRest, we're going to talk about Sabbath and how she honors the Sabbath even in her busy life. We're also going to talk about anxiety and panic and shame and so much more. I can't wait for you to listen to this short but extremely sweet podcast with Rebekah Lyons. We'll be right back. Don't go away. It's just getting good. All right, you know I'm always telling you to get your labs done, and I'm insisting that you get specific labs done. Now there's a place to get all of that done for $199. This episode of StRest is thankfully brought to you by Superpower. It's the membership that gives you real answers about your health. What you get with Superpower is 100+ lab tests every single year, and they check everything from heart health to hormones to inflammation, and it's just for $199. No fighting with your doctor, no fighting with insurance. It's a 15-minute lab visit. The labs are everywhere around the U.S. You get your results in about 5 days. And here's the biggest piece that I love is that you also get a dashboard that gives you ideas and recommendations based on your lab work for your diet, for your lifestyle, which supplements you should take, even prescriptions. Here's the absolute best part. 63% of members discover early risk factors for diabetes. 44% uncover elevated heart disease risk. And 70% slow their pace of aging. Superpower is giving you superpower. It's lab data for real life changes. Join today. Go to superpower.com/Kerstin. That's Kerstin. Superpower.com/Kerstin. So, Rebekah, it's wonderful to have you wonderful to have you on the podcast. You are somebody who I think all of my viewers and anybody would look at and say is very connected to Jesus. Like you are definitely have that connection. And
Oh,
in that, you've spoken so openly about your own struggle with panic disorders and anxiety.
mm,
How do we as Christians put those two together? Because I think sometimes we can feel like we're weak if we're admitting that, even though we are so connected to the Lord.
that is a good question. Um, I think the secret to strength is weakness. When Paul says, I don't boast in my strength, I boast in my weakness. And this is a man who expanded the gospel to the entire Roman Empire. I just did a Footsteps of Paul tour and taught in Greece and Turkey in August. And I marveled at like Jesus' footprint, right? When his 3 years of ministry in Israel and Palestine. And he said, like, to his disciples turned apostles, you're going to do greater things than me. And we're kind of like, no, that's not possible. Like, what does that even mean? Right. And then Paul literally is like out to kill and murder Christians because he studies under the leading rabbi Gamaliel. He is the renowned attorney. He thinks all these Christians are heretics and he's trying to protect the Torah. And this is this like zealous, and then he winds up like spreading and getting stoned and shipwrecked and 3 missionary journeys, and he's imprisoned and he's writing these letters to all these churches, and like what he does, like what he does in scale, in contrast to even just that original like vision of what Jesus birthed, and then all the eyewitnesses just went gangbusters. I'm he's still the one going, don't even look at what I do. I am nothing apart from like Christ. I count it all like my gain is Christ. Like all of this, he's like, I'm the worst of all, like, and I take comfort in that because he he did so many insane things that God empowered him to do through his spirit. And yet he knew all along, like, apart from God, I'm nothing. And I think that's the secret to our dependence on God is that I actually had a panic attack the other night in front before this first keynote that I did to kick off the fall, coming off of Greece and Turkey, coming off a wonderful summer, coming off my son getting ready to get married. And yet I felt so keenly, acutely my frailty apart from God. And I just got on my face in the hotel room and just
Mm.
wept and said, Lord, like, you are my peace. I got to go preach something that is in real time. And I think God, he allows us to depend on him so that we can do nothing apart from him. And I think that's just going to continue throughout our life. Am I ruled
Mm.
by fear? No. Am I threatened by fear? Yes. Like we can't resist the enemy's attempts, right? Galatians 6 says, put on the full armor of God, or Ephesians 6, put on the full armor of God, so that when the enemy comes, you will still be standing firm. It's not if, it's when. He's always trying to veer and intervene and intercept the good things that God has called us to in advance. So as long as we recognize that, we're not intimidated by it. We're like, oh, I see what's happening. Well, what do? I go to the Lord. He becomes my strength, my refuge. He rescues me. He pulls me out. And then that one night, I wind up preaching with total peace and wind up praying over girls for 2 hours late that night till 11 p.m. who have survived suicide attempts, who have been on addicting drugs since they were 5 years old, who are in abusive relationships.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, God, like you gave me the grace to get up off the ground in that hotel room. And you also gave me the grace to stand there for 2 hours and lay hands on all the people that you would have me encounter. And I know all of this is not at all about me. That's the beauty of walking in this tempered strength.
In that situation and all the situations that you've been in, I have to imagine at some point you were faced with shame. There's a lot of mental illness and shame that go together.
Yeah.
For the woman right now
Mhm.
who's watching, and mainly the person watching right now and listening right now, is a woman our age. Maybe she's in her 50s and her 60s even, and deals a lot with anxiety. It could a lot be hormonal as well. But
Sure.
there's a shame that comes from not being able to control it. And even though we know that control is not a word of the Lord's, and a shame of then feeling the shame about wanting to try and control it. It's like the spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just wonder if we shift the shame to just dependence, right? Like, what if were
Mhm.
okay going, I need God. Like, I just need him. I need him all the time. I need him. I need to talk to him all the time. That's the abiding life. And he said, when you remain in me and I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. So I wonder if like the fruit of joy and love and peace and all the things that we want to attain by control, you actually can't ever attain any of those things by control, but you can attain those things by just depending on God and remaining in that ongoing dialogue with God. I lead a weekly Bible study. We met this morning. We're going through Ephesians, and I was just talking about how to practice the presence of God. It's you never attain some level of relationship with God. It's just like every other relationship in your life. If you talk to him every day and you invite him into all your decisions and you submit even your plans to what their plans are, like you become God's bestie, and it doesn't feel like striving. It doesn't feel like you have to bring like your A game for your Bible study. You're just always talking to God about like, what do you have? And thank you, Lord, thank you for that. And will you show me what you want me to say to this person? I feel like a burden for them, or God, I feel insecure in this area. What is it that you would have for me? Just a lot of those like open ended listening prayers that don't force control, but more there's an ease. There's a grace to go, okay, just trust that you're going to be what I need for today. And that's all I need. I don't have control tomorrow, but I'm going to ask you to just dwell right here. May I feel your nearness right now.
You often teach about the four rhythms, and I'd love for you to introduce the listener to that, and not your last book, but the book before it, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how that relates back to not only your life, our life, but mental health.
Yeah. Rhythms of Renewal is really all about trading stress and anxiety for a life of peace and purpose. And after coming out of panic disorder 15 years ago, and God just bringing me into a healing journey, I knew that God can do this rescue moment, but it's up to us to take proactive steps and put ourselves in the path of healing every day. And so you can just ask God to heal and then it like heal your body, but you keep eating crap and putting junk in your body and never moving your body. You're still going to defy the laws of nature in the way that He made us to function and work. So I realized these rhythms were very important, and just in my journal put out this quadrant of like the four areas of health that I wanted that would trade anxiety for peace. And so the rhythms are spiritual health, physical health, relational health, and vocational health. Rest, restore, connect, and create. Rest is all about the inner life and our spiritual health. It's when we ask the questions, God, am I okay? Are you and I okay? Am I even acknowledging you or talking to you? Do I feel safe with you? Can I tell you everything without feeling fear or shame? Can I repent to you and acknowledge my sin and ask for your forgiveness without feeling like you're going to keep a record of wrongs and always judge me from afar?
Mm-mm.
Do you love me? Do I feel your love for me? Is it unconditional, or is it contingent on me performing for your love? Um, Getting real honest with God in these rhythms of rest. Um, if you can start with the inner life, then everything flows from there. It flows from the heart, and so in the rest rhythm, I encourage people just with things about getting quiet, silencing the noise, taking a tech detox, routines for deep sleep, a morning routine, just cultivating a life that communes with God, like I was just describing. That's the foundation of these rhythms. The next one is restore. If you're figuring out with that with God and you're starting to just feel secure in your relationship with Him, then you're starting to look at the exterior, right? If He wants to heal the inside, He also wants to heal the outside. So I look at my body and my hormones and my emotions and my food and my movement and understand that God is the master scientist who made our brains, and He uses all means necessary for our healing. This means I don't just have to go to a certified psychiatrist or a licensed clinician. I also need to do just the basic building blocks of health. I need to eat food that grows on a plant, not made in a plant, right? I need to eat things as cleanly as I can. I need to move my body with regulating rhythms at a cadence that elevates my heart rate enough every day to release serotonin in my brain naturally, which is the happy hormone and gives you positivity or well being. I need to hold a hug with someone that releases oxytocin and gives me a feeling of connection and belonging. Um, I need to be vulnerable, with the Lord and with my body and know when my body's telling me to slow down and stop trying to do everything to prove that I'm worthy of love. And then the codependency, we could go on, but often we so much are trying to please everyone and we forsake even what God has said, invited
Yeah.
us to do. And we're just basically all these other little people in our lives, whether it's the children or the adults or the bosses or the employers or the friends, they are governing our life more than God is. And codependency is anyone you latch on that takes the place of God. So I just have to go back and go, God, I know you don't call me to abandon family. I know you don't call me to abandon friendships. But I also know you don't call me to idolize them either. And so I don't want any counterfeit gods or these idols of like needing this approval to take the place of my just obedience to you. And I think for a lot of women, we just run too hard and too fast and we juggle everything because we think our life depends on it. And it doesn't. Life doesn't depend on our output, it depends on our source. And so when we can reverse engineer that back to God, you made my body, you made my mind, you made my heart, you're the source of all of life, then I'm going to slow down and I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to trust you for that healing. The output rhythms come from there. That the relational health is all about the people in our lives, and the vocational is all about the work that God's empowered us to do. And I think when we have healthy minds and bodies, then we can go, okay, how do we love and serve out of the overflow, but not duty or obligation? Because burnout is just giving from an empty place. So if we're filled up in those input rhythms of rest and restore, then we have something to give. And so the connect and create, I think, are so sweet to how do we forgive? How do we apologize first? How do we lead with vulnerability in all our relationships? And then the create is all about what did God give us in the womb when He knit us? What are the birthright gifts that are effortless for us? For me, apparently talking is one of those things, or writing. I didn't know that as I was young, but I found that later. Sometimes God gives people the gifting of construction or mechanics. Like you can build things, you can create things. He gives you the gift of teaching, of prophecy, of service. I mean, everyone has a birthright gift God's gave them that should be effortless for them, that if they would do it for free. And so I just always tell people to go back to like the more in alignment you can find the things that you just are effortless for you, they come out of you naturally from a God breathed place. If you can get those things to correspond with your vocational work as close as possible, you will find that work is more of a joy than a drain.
Absolutely. Going back to the rest and renewal, the piece of it, because I look at your life, or we look at your life and you think, wow, you became a mama again to a 5-year-old. You have a very full life. How, and yet you're saying we still need to have that rest and renewal. So how do you do it? And in fact, tell people a little bit about your family story.
Yeah. So my oldest son has Down syndrome. He's 24, our firstborn bio. Then I have a 22-year-old and 20-year-old bio. And then we adopted a 5-year-old daughter with Down syndrome from China when she was 5, and now she's 12. So we've had her for 7 years. So we're empty nesting, but we call it full nesting because we will always have Kate and Joy with us on some level as long as the Lord has that. Um, and so what that means for us, Gabe and I, is we are batch workers. We are the epitome of like having very rigid, not rigid, but very clear boundaries on what we say yes and no to. So Mondays are my days in the office. Tuesdays are my days to do grad school. Yes, I know. I don't know why I added that in. Wednesdays are my days to do all like the Serve the Rhythms community, my readers, our podcasts, our retreats. Thursdays is a Sabbath. That means Gabe and I actually have time as adults without children or without work meetings from about 9 to 2. And this is because we can make our own calendar. So I'm not saying everyone has this luxury, but it's also because on Fridays, I often fly out and I teach in different cities on Friday nights and Saturdays. So I know that I need a Sabbath every week, that day is the Lord's. And that means stop doing any productive work. Just let it be a day of receiving, connecting with my husband, going for walks. Maybe we play golf, we go do a lunch date. We really guard against talking about anything work related or parenting related. Because we still, trust me, we still do that at 3 in the morning sometimes if we're stressed about something. But we are really protective of Sabbath. I believe that in the scriptures, Sabbath was never casual to God. If you go through the Old Testament, it was like, don't murder, don't steal, and observe the Sabbath. He brought up the Sabbath constantly because what he wants us to know is that rest reminds us that we're not God. And if God is the one who created the heavens and earth and he rested and we think we're above that, then we have some hubris attached to our worth. That we think all our stuff is so important, we couldn't possibly rest and trust God and rely on God and stop performing for love. So it was a discipline because I am a type A firstborn control freak by nature and nurture. And yet the Lord stripped that away by going like, you're going to do far more if you stop the work and let me accelerate some things that you have nothing to do with. And that's shown up over every time when I read that book, Abiding with Christ by Andrew Murray, written in 1895. So I like old books by dead people, but he says when we initiate nothing, when we stop the work, the Holy Spirit's energies are like activated to the highest level. It's almost like we get out of the way and stop trying to make things happen. And God's like, I've actually already had this ordered for you, but it's taken longer for you to realize it because you're so busy barking up this different tree that's not going to really bear fruit. But over here, this is the lane that I've got for you, but you don't trust me enough to just be still so that I can show it to you. And I think that's hard for women because we just go-getters. We just want to charge the mountain because just to prove we're strong. God's like, I made you strong. I know you're strong. The first convert in all of Europe was a woman. Jesus came through the womb of a woman without the seed of the man. Like Jesus auto-corrected like the value on women. We don't need to keep proving something God already says is true. What we need to do is just rest in the strength that we've already been given and wait on him. And he renews our strength and he shows us his will and he shows us his word in his perfect timing and love. And often he will accelerate something far beyond anything we imagine. The year after I adopted Joy and I asked the Lord, I quit teaching and writing and blah, 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 because I had to lay it all down. And that was very difficult because I finally had gotten running, for Jesus, which is so silly to even say it out loud. God, 9 months after we brought Joy home, put the book that I wrote to be number 2 out of all books in the world in front of Hillary Clinton. He put me on every major media outlet. I had nothing to do with that but obey him. And I think we shortcut God's we shortcut his blessing and his favor because obedience always precedes blessing. And rest precedes blessing, not striving, not hustling, not having a game plan, just submission precedes blessing. And so I'm not saying that should be the motivation to submit, but just when you trust him, it means you really trust him. And he delights in those who trust him. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, but he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And when he becomes our source and our first love, then those things can come and they can go. The accolades can come and they can go, but the source of our life is never going to fade. And he wants to know, like, am I enough? Just me as your God, as your savior, as your redeemer, am I enough? And there were years I was like, no, you're not enough. I need everybody else to agree with that. But I am in a place now where I go, yes, you're enough. That's the delight of it all.
Stay with us. There's so much more to come. Hey friends, quick break. Today's sponsor is Ancient Nutrition. In this clip from my conversation with co-founder Jordan Rubin, what stood out to me was how Jordan distills it into 2 principles. Eat what God created for food and in the form that best serves the body. And how that philosophy really led to Ancient Nutrition and multi-collagen protein and its profound impact and use for the skin, hair, nails, bones, joints, and gut. Before we roll this clip, if you want to try it, please visit ancientnutrition.com and use the code StRest20 for an exclusive offer. That's ancientnutrition.com and the code StRest20. Here we go. Can you give people a little bit of your background?
When I was a teenager turning 19 years old, I started to get gut symptoms, and this ended up turning out to be a diagnosis of Crohn's colitis, which I went from 6 foot 185 pounds and healthy to 104 pounds in a wheelchair.
It is such a remarkable story, and it highlights and pinpoints so much of what people listening are going through and everybody countrywide right now are going through. People are afraid to change their mind because of the way it's going to make them look. I think that you have to if you get new knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just blessed, as I said, to have found the truth at an early age because I was so desperate. The truth is the truth. And according to the Bible, the truth sets us free. Every food group can be healthy provided that you understand two principles. One, eat what God created for food. And number two, eat the food in the healthiest form for the body or how it's best created.
What is regenerative farming then? Where somebody says, oh, I should be looking for food and produce that is grown regenerative, organic, certified. What is that?
Regenerative means, in layman's terms, leaving a farm better than where you found it. And it is a progressive standard, which means every year our soil has more nutrition. Our plants have more antioxidants. Our animals are healthier. Whereas in a typical conventional farm, the soil quality and the ecosystem gets worse every year because you are only pulling out, you are never adding back. And we've decided at Ancient Nutrition to latch on to a really great standard called Regenerative Organic Certified because we believe it represents principles in soil health, animal health, and even farmer welfare that can transform our planet and ultimately the health of our people.
So let's go back for a second before we go forward, because I do want to talk about collagen and I want to talk about Ancient Nutrition. What was the basis for this diet that transformed your health in such a short period of time?
I called up my protege and good friend, Dr. Josh Axe, and I said, I have an idea. I had a severe knee injury and I needed something to transform my health. And I was able to find compounds that we now know as collagen. And I said to Josh, what if we created the multivitamin of collagen? He was recommending a collagen that had one or two types. And I said, what if we create a concept called multi-collagen protein? That was the first product that I created for Josh that later, when we joined forces, became Ancient Nutrition's multi-collagen protein. And that's how you and I met. And it's been a great opportunity for us to educate people that there are two important types of protein. One type builds muscle. One type builds skin, hair, nails, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons, and that is called collagen. And it has become a sensation over the last 15 years. And almost everyone I meet needs collagen to boost their physical appearance, to improve their joint health, their gut, and so much more. It's the missing protein that holds us together. And that has been really the leading message at Ancient Nutrition for 9 years.
You are such a blessing to so many. And thank you for listening to the Lord and sharing your story and keeping us healthy. It was great to have you. Don't forget to try your own multi-collagen protein and everything at Ancient Nutrition's website with a discount. Use the code STREST20 at checkout. That's STREST 20 at checkout. Enjoy. If you are one of those people who I'm sure almost everybody is right now listening, feeling the overwhelm, feeling the burnout, feeling like you're trying to piece everything together and you're using Scotch tape and God, I can't stop because my world and my family and everything's going to fall apart if I don't keep going. That's the time when you specifically need to stop, surrender, lean in, listen, and rest and do the things that Rebekah's talking about. We talk a lot about Sabbath on this podcast. It's a huge piece of my life. What are some of the other non-negotiables on that day for you? Like, are you off of your phone and you're off of social media? Are you not shopping? How does it work for you?
Yeah. Not at all on a device or a phone or a laptop. No. I don't even want to take it on walks to like pace my steps for the day because I just know it's on my body, like it's just there. I've gotten off social media in general. I thankfully have someone who kind of helps me manage that so I don't have to look at it as much. It does, I feel like the caution with social is it's all or nothing for me sometimes. Like if I'm on it, then I'm looking at it all the time. If I'm not on it and I'm just like posting some things that I've already done offline, then I feel a little disconnected from my audience too. And that's just to be honest and vulnerable about it. It's hard the older I get with adult children who are building lives and want privacy to know how to do that well, because I've always presented in
Ugh,
every
yes, it
book,
is.
not presented, I've come as I am and I share whatever's there. And yet I understand that not every story is mine to tell. And I'm one person in a whole family. So I just, and my husband is more private by nature than I am. One of my kids is more private in nature than another kid. It's just temperament, personality. I think the question for me with social in general is like, is this edifying, right? Is this encouraging and building myself up or others up? And every time I teach on a stage or teach in a town or go to a church or go to a conference or go to a college or wherever, in person, it always feels very pure. It feels very pure. Like you're there, nobody's looking at their phones. We're all just serving the people that God has put us right in front of. And it feels so pure and genuine. It's the medium of the device and the filters and the screens and the distance we have from that person then at that point to know how to steward that well. And I can't say that I've mastered it. I've done it for 15 years and I've done all variations of being super involved and then very distant. And I just continue to ask the Lord to show me um, how to best steward that platform because it's just an anomaly in our lifetime. Nobody else has had to wrestle with this. We're all rookies on how to be pure and genuine in a medium that is filled with algorithms. Like it's very difficult. Like you're swimming upstream to try to be authentic in that space. But at the same point, I still think the Lord can fill in the gaps for that.
One of the chapters of your book that spoke to me the most was the Say Yes chapter.
Mm,
Going through all of it and then coming to the Say Yes piece. And it's amazing how the Lord works because before I even read that, our women's group, which I help lead, that was like kind of our big mantra for the year was Say Yes. And we were going to talk a lot about, going all in. And then I read that chapter and the piece about as we age, we stop taking those risks. Can you talk about that a
mm.
little bit and why we need to continue to say yes to the Lord even when we're scared?
Yeah, it's hard. We work all these years in our first half of life. I'm 51 now. We work all these years in our first half of life to establish some like utopian retirement plan of like having all the comforts and all the delight and the joy and the beauty. I mean, trust me, I can obsess about a paint color more than anybody. And yet, I think the problem with comfort is it can easily, if not given in service and gratitude, it can easily lead to complacency. And complacency is a killer because all of a sudden we've lost the fire and the passion that enriches us and enables us to do what makes us come alive, right? Comfort doesn't make you come alive. It is a haven, it is a place to be refilled. But when you're on that burning edge of like what you were made for, that's not when you're in your robe and slippers. It's when you are
Mm-mm.
stepping out in a bold way and a faithful way that's also riddled with a little bit of like a stress response system. Like you're stepping into an unknown territory. It's new for you, but it's building resilience. That's the whole point. Like you only build resilience through adversity. And so if we build a life that is void of adversity, we will be the least resilient people on the planet. And we will wonder why we kind of got sidelined. And I don't and then what happens is when you're not pushing yourself and triggering that stress responses system just a little bit in a healthy regulating way. I write all this about this in the Building the Resilient Life that came after the Rhythms book. And it's just like there's these 5 rules we have to have in our life to build resilience. And that's going to be longevity for us. I love Viktor Frankl. I talk a lot about him as a Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning in 1947. And um, but the thing about him is that he said the key to longevity is to wake up every morning with a task that you must do. And I don't know if that means employed or unemployed. I just think we all like Anxiety is unfulfilled responsibility, which means you know you're made to do something and you're shrinking back or you're not doing it. And so when we lose sight of that in our older years of just being complacent and being like just pleasure stacking, then we'll lose like the passion and the fire that that is so visceral to our longevity. So that's a word of warning to myself. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'll go, okay, Gabe, like, what have we done? Like every decade, we try to say yes to something that's costly. And it might be a big thing. It might be a cross country move or selling what we have or adopting joy. Now, I'm not saying it always has to look like that, but what's costly? And we're always asking that, God, what is it you're inviting us to do? Right. And anything God is inviting us to do does require risk. It does require some level of sacrifice. It does require some level of surrender and trust and dependence, or otherwise we wouldn't need God. So, and it wouldn't be his will. So I would always invite, well, I'm in that season right now. I know my 50s won't look like my 40s. I know there are new like mountains and heights he wants to take me to. Does that mean I want to take the mountain and exhaust myself? No, I don't think he's causing us to fatigue ourselves in these like strenuous ways. But what he is asking is for us to risk comfort and security, knowing that he is our strength and our source. And I can't pragmatically always dictate what that looks like for everybody, but it's going to be taking you to some places you've not been before.
The last two questions I always ask everybody on the podcast. First is, what are non-negotiable health practices that you have? What keeps you going?
Well, yeah, walking every day. I definitely start every morning with like a little bit of like a lot of protein. I just have to, everyone's talking about
Very good.
protein in their
Proud
midlife.
of you for that.
And I'm doing resistance with weights like 2 to 3 times a week and
Good.
walking a ton. Like I call it aggressive walking, like up hills with sometimes a weighted vest, whatever. But, I'm also just I move a lot and we garden, so I eat so much from the ground year round. And I've learned to
Right.
cook a lot because you don't know what to do with, I pick 3 figs off and I'll just eat them off the tree, or you've got 1,000 cherry tomatoes or like all the peppers in the world or jalapenos or salsa, So I'm always cooking or making things for about 7 months out of the year in the moderate climate. And that's taken time, but I count that as a Sabbath rhythm because working with your hands in a way that's restorative. Like if my vocational work is to talk or to teach or travel, or then working with my hands that's tactile, that's more just in the kitchen and all my people are around and it's fun. It's like an enjoyable thing. It's kind of like it's part of a Sabbath meal. Um, so yeah, so the non-negotiables are fresh food and lots of movement.
And what if you're talking to somebody right now who feels like they're kind of in a season, they feel stuck, they feel overwhelmed, they feel anxiety, they feel discontent, they feel a lot of the negative stress and not so resilient right now. Where's the first place that they start?
Well, in the Rhythms book, I have the first chapter in the Rest Rhythm is take inventory, and it's asking that question, what's right, wrong, confused, and missing. You have to examine your life. An unexamined life is not worth living, right? So if you're feeling all these things and you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting obviously what you're getting. You're going to keep feeling that. So what needs to change? And you might not know because you've just been doing it so long, it's autopilot. So I would always invite someone close in your life that you trust, that's like maybe even a mentor or someone that is living a life of that you see as a picture of health that you might want to aspire to or at least learn from. I've had mentors speak into me when I do these inventory things. You can do them annually, you can do them quarterly, you can do them with your spouse, you can do them with your bestie, you can do them on your own with God. But it's a free PDF. If you just go to RebekahLyons.com, I think it's called Take Inventory or Inventory. You can make sure that I give you the right link to that. It's free. You can just download it and ask those 4 questions and fill them out. And then you'll quickly learn which rhythms you are avoiding and ignoring. And the goal of the rhythms message is like you really can't ignore one. You might be killing it in the gym, but if you have no friends and you have no family that like you really need to think about connect, right? If
Right.
you're killing it at work, but you never stop and you never slow down, you never feel like you're afraid of the silence, then there's some inside stuff God wants to reveal that he wants
Mhm.
to heal. So this inventory um, question is all about like rounding out those rhythms. We usually have one that's most dominant for us, and you can even take the quiz for that. It is just like RebekahLyons.com/quiz, but it's definitely that'll tell you which rhythm is lacking, and then how to grow, which one is the strongest, but then how to grow in those other areas. It's really tactical and practical. I always want to give tools for women in a tool belt that goes like, don't go overwhelmed with this big long list of rhythms you need to start practicing, but just ask God with this inventory, like, what is the thing that's struggling the most? Am I having the hardest time with rest or stillness? Are my relationships all suffering? Is my health suffering? Or is my work suffering? Pick one, pick the leading one, and at least know, okay, maybe that's where we begin.
Afraid of the Silence, that could be the next book.
Mm.
There's a lot of people out there who that is such a true story for. If I stop, I'm going to have to deal with all of this stuff, and that's really hard to
Oh,
do.
yeah, and it sometimes gets worse, louder before it gets quieter, but it
Right.
I'm telling you, it is life-changing when we let
Mhm.
God, like, just excavate what's probably been there for decades. I have studied enough neuroscience and faith in my clinical work. I'm doing a master's in counseling right now that I'm almost done with, but this unresolved grief and trauma, how it plays out in our anxiety and depression, key indicators, key connections, correlators, and then the loneliness epidemic that follows the
Mhm.
isolation crisis of devices, screens, and output. So we can just come around those big three killers, like those silent killers that slowly just rob us of the life giving breath that we have. Maybe not literally kill us, but kill like the life that we were meant to live or lead. Um,
Absolutely.
then it all starts with root cause. It all starts with origin story, as much as we'd rather avoid it.
I
We
know.
bring it to the light, we invite God to heal it, and then we're able to walk free.
You can learn so much more in Rebekah's books and also your podcast, which is the new season just dropped, right?
Yes, Rhythms for Life, season 12. It's called The Rhythm of Us. We're talking about 10 conversations every couple needs to have in our new book, The Journal for Us, that comes out in a couple weeks.
I also recommend going back and listening to past episodes of her podcast.
Yes,
I love the Digital Detox
yes.
episode. There's just so much goodness there. Where else can people connect with you?
Yeah, so just go to RebekahLyons.com. We have, and it's RebekahLyons.com. We have a lot of freebies, free resources you can download. We've got all our podcast stuff uploaded there, all the links to all of our books and different topics, whether it's resilience or freedom or marriage or parenting. Just my goal is to just give away as much as we possibly can that would be a resource to you. Lots of curriculum, study guides, companion journals, you name it. Just whatever works for you in this season.
It's such a blessing. You're such a blessing. Thank you for taking the time. It was great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm always telling you that you need to get your blood work done. And when you come to me as a health coach, I actually send you a PDF that says, here's all the blood work that I want you to ask your doctor for. And it's so hard to get it. And I have to work with you on the right keywords to say so that you can get it from your doctor and you don't always get it. And then it's very expensive. That's why I love Superpower. Not only are they a sponsor of this podcast, but on the next episode of StRest, we're going to talk all about blood work, how to get it, what are the right biomarkers to use that are going to help you learn things like, why am I always tired, or why am I stressed out? The things that are going to help you with your longevity. How often should we actually get blood work done? This is a very, very rich conversation with the doctor who is revolutionizing the way that we get our blood work done and pairing it with AI to give you a full look at what's going on in your body before you even get to diagnosis. It is the blood work episode of StRest, and it's coming up next. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kerstin.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.Kerstin-Lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.